Hello everyone and welcome to Callsign Charlie Models, and today we have another inbox review of another behemoth kit. Today is the 148 scale B2 Spirit by Titan Models. This kit is absolute monster of a kit. It's a different medium than what we typically use. This is a vacuform kit. Sorry, I drew a blank on the actual name of the type of plastic is. So this is a mixed media with vacuform and also some 3D printed resin included in the kit. This kit is still available from Titan Models. I'll add the link to the website down in the description. So if you want to go get this kit afterwards, you can go head over to that website. And he also does have various other large scale aircraft on the website as well that you can get. After I'm done with the instructions, we'll go to the actual website and show you the decal options and also the prices of the kits as well. So starting off with the instructions, you do download them from the website. And just going on, we have the assembly guide right here. We have a nice history about Titan Model right here. This is a one-man shop. Chris, he's a very great guy. Customer service, very quick and great to deal with on that. So never had any problems with him. Like I said, great guy, and you'll get to see his work here in a second. But going through the instructions, we have just a table of contents right here. Then we have general guidance for those of us that have never worked with a vacuform kit. It is nice to have a little description and actually a detailed description of how to work with vacuform kits right here. As you can see, he's going showing you how to do everything on some other kits that they have right there working with vacuform, and how to glue it, how to cut it, and all of that. So again, very nice to have this included in the instructions right here. So we're going off just working on how to cut the vacuform, how to drill holes and do all that, and the glue that you should be using for gluing everything together. And then he goes into working with the 3D printed parts, which we'll get to see here in a second, and just going on, keeping on going on for all of that. And then soon we'll be getting to the actual instructions for the B2. These decals are from Draw Decal, so they do go down very well. And also there are a lot of options for this, which again, after we go through the instructions, I'll go to the website and you can actually see all the decal options that are included in this kit. So going on for all of this, clear parts, and then now we get into our B2 specific guidance, right? So we are going to have a few parts to cut out of the vacuform right here. This is where our intakes and our exhaust are right there. And then again, some more parts to cut off as well. And then you can see how it's supposed to look after that is all done. And then we have a kit correction for misalignment of the landing gear wells, but that is listed in the instructions. So as long as you follow the instructions, you shouldn't have any issues with that. So continuing on, now we have our landing gear well, our cockpit, our aft landing gear wells, getting those all in and cut out right there. You do have the option when purchasing this kit if you want the bomb bay or not. And then we also have to make a mask for our canopy right here, as you'll see, getting that cut out from the vacuform right there. So just continue on working through there, adding in more pieces. Shows you adding in the interior framing for the canopy as well. Getting all that done. This is going to look really good. I have seen a couple of these built up, and they do look really good when they are all finished, by the way. Just adding in more parts right there, getting your front canopy done, and then working on our landing gear assemblies right there. And then our intake and exhaust assemblies, getting those assembled. Then our cockpit assembly right there. And then our rotary launchers for our bomb bay. Our bomb bays right here. And then getting everything attached into the fuselage through sub-assemblies right there. And then our landing gear doors, bomb bay doors, how everything is supposed to look. And then finally the decals and paint. B2s are painted overall federal standard number 36118 gunship gray, which I believe is MRP 40 if you use MRP paints, which you will need a lot of it for this kit. After that, we go through our decal placements with the national insignia, the walkways, and all of that, and then also some stencils going on to the top end of the fuselage as well, and then going off onto the side decals, our actual aircraft decals as well. Then we have the underside, adding in some other decals to that. And then for our landing gear doors, for our decals, again, adding all of that in. Our nose gears, gear doors, bomb bay doors. And then we have our references and records of revisions right there. We have our parts list, which we will be going through all the parts here in just a second. Looks like there's going to be a lot of nice parts, and it's going to be a good starting out point if you want to go crazy and adding in all your wiring and cabling and all that. Definitely is an option with this kit. So this is the only game in town for a 1/48 scale B-2 bomber. So definitely, I think if you want to have all your strategic bombers, this is definitely a must-have. Alright, so that's it for the instructions. Now we go over to the kit. So the basic assembly, or the basic kit, right, is $299.99. And then if you get it with the bomb bay, it jumps up $50, but you'll see why here in a second. And then for decal options, you choose which decals you want when you purchase the kit. So we have the Spirit of Alaska, America, Arizona, California, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Indiana, Kansas, Kitty Hawk, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Texas, and Washington. So a lot of decal options to go on. Just do your research on which ones you want. If you're looking for nose door art or bomb bay art or something like that, do your research on which ones you want for that. So that's how that works, and the shipping is in the US, so you shouldn't have to worry about tariffs or any of that good stuff from the state side, and shipping is relatively quick. Now, getting into the actual fuselage parts. Now these parts are absolutely massive. We'll go off on the bottom one, and as you can see, it's I have it zoomed out all the way, and I'm going to try to get as much of this in, or we're just going to have to go like this to get it on. But this is absolutely massive. We'll go through the decals here in just a second. Alright, so yeah, you see the fuselage, and I'm going to take a measurement here in a second, but the starting detail for everything is nicely molded in for our panel lines. I'm hoping the camera, maybe if I take one of the lights off, there we go, you can kind of see the detail on that a little bit. It's kind of hard to see, but it is nicely molded into here. You might take a panel liner just to maybe make it a little bit deeper, but I mean, again, it's really nice. These planes, they don't have a lot of detail on them, so you don't have to really worry about it. And you see all the parts that you have to cut out right here. They're nice and raised, so you don't have any questions about what you need to cut. And so for the total length or width of this kit, so measurements wise, let me get this set up. From wingtip to wingtip is 42.5 inches, or see, about 1,080, millimeters in 1080 millimeters in wingspan, and a total length of approximately 16.5 inches or 430 millimeters roughly. Alright, so kit is absolutely massive, just like the B-52 I did yesterday from HPH. And then we have the top side of the fuselage right here. Get this, see that? Again, very nice molding detail on it. Sorry, it's a little bit dirty, but we see all the parts that need to be cut out, and also our clear parts right here, which we'll go over here in a second. Alright, so yeah, you can see right here, this is really hard to get into camera, and I'm hoping that the panel lines will show up. There we go. We're gonna see, now you can see the panel lines on there. Very nice detail for what it is. I'm trying to get it because, like I said, this is very hard to get around on camera. You see the center spine right here, all the detail that's on that as well. Hopefully, let me try this camera or this light. So again, this is going to paint up. Once you get this all cleaned up and everything, it's going to paint up really, really nice. Alright, so up next we have our decals. Get zoomed in here. They are from Draw Decal. The decals do feel very nice. They might be a little bit, they feel a little bit thick on the sheet, but we'll have to see when we actually apply them on how they feel, because sometimes I've dealt with decals that felt like Braille on the paper, but when you go to pull it off the paper, it's super thin. But these do feel a little bit thick, but they should work out okay with some paint and everything on that. But again, I'm looking at it from the side profile, and there's not really a much of a raise on the decals, so those should be okay on that. Then we have the other set of decals with our walkways right here, pretty much low vis on those. And then I got the Indiana, Spirit of Indiana right here, and this one looks really nice, but I am going to do Operation Midnight Hammer when I do build this, so I'm going to need to do some research and see which B2s actually partook in that mission, and then get some decals afterwards for that. And for that, I'm going to get a couple Edward MOBs or MOABs, Moabs, and modify them to make them the penetrator bombs. Alright, so up next we have our clear parts, our canopy, which again is vacuform. It's nicely protected in some cellophane right here, and you can see right here you're gonna need to cut all that out, but again, nice and clear on this one right here. This one's the clearest one. Get this off so you can see. So yeah, nice and crystal clear. Just follow the instructions on how to cut this out, and you won't have any problem. And I think maybe that's a fingerprint from me or what, but I'll clean up real nice, and maybe put a little smoke tint on it to give that look. So again, really nice on that. Alright, so up next we have our cockpit deck right here. Again, nice and 3D printed. Not much detail, but we're going to be throwing ejection seats on it and everything else. And also, you are not going to be able to see much of this once it is in right there. If you want to, you can scratch build a couple things to go into the back end right here, like the cot and the toilet and all that stuff that go back there. I think they also have a microwave back there as well. But yeah, so that's it for the main flight deck, and then we flip it over to the nose landing gear well. It's just the good starting point for if you want to add in all the detail and everything. And I'm not sure really how much of this you're going to be able to see once the nose gear strut and everything is put in. But if you want to go crazy on it, you can go in and add wiring. Like I said, this is a good starting point for it. If you want to build it straight out of the box, this is going to look like a great B2. And if you want to go crazy on it, you can add in all the plumbing and all that stuff to it. So again, and then we have our access port right here for the boarding ladder as well. Alright, so moving on to our instrument combing. Some nice detail on that, as you can see right there. Very nicely done on the detail on the instrument panel. Paint up very nice. Luckily it's all screened, so you don't really have to worry about dials. On the top instrument combing, we do have some 3D print lines, but with that you can sand that down real quick and easy with a light sandpaper, and those will come out nice and smooth after a couple swipes with the sanding stick. Up next we have our ejection seats. Look pretty nice. You're gonna need to add some tape seat belts to it and maybe an ejection handle, but again, a great starting point for this kit. And yeah, goes right into here like, well, like so. So again, you're not going to be able to see much of this. Just add some seat belts to that, and that will be good to go with that part. Then we have our control sticks right here. They gave us extra just in case you break one of them off right here. For cutting these off, I would cut them off at the base right here, and then you can do your cleanup afterwards, and it's less likely to break off any of these parts right here. Alright, so up next we have our intake area. Pretty sure this is our intake area. This might be our exhaust. No, this is our intake. So I'm gonna need to drill out these holes, it looks like. Possibly, we'll have to see, but the intake area, we do have some nice detail again with the 3D print lines, as you can see right there. But again, a real quick easy sand with that. A light sand will take care of all those 3D print lines, and you won't have to worry. It'll come out nice and smooth on that. So don't worry about these. Just a little bit of extra work, just a couple, like 2 minutes worth of work, and you will be all set with that, getting that on. So, and then for the actual intakes right here, these are nice and silky smooth on the inside. So very nicely done, and they are also listed port and starboard on these as well. And for these, are they listed? Yep, they are. The actual intakes are listed for port and starboard as well. Alright, so up next we have our exhaust areas right here. As you can see, some nice detail in those as well, and blocked off on the back end. So again, very nicely done, and again they are labeled port and starboard as well. Alright, so up next we have our intake fans, and these are absolutely gorgeous. Very, very nicely done on these intake fans. All the blade detail that's in there, absolutely gorgeous. So very nicely done. And actually I'm gonna pull this piece back out. So it is gonna take a little bit of cleanup to get those ready. Some modification right here to get these to match up. But again, you can see how those look inside the actual intake, and those look absolutely gorgeous right there. Just has a rough fit right now. So when you get this all painted up and then the fans actually painted, that is going to look absolutely amazing when it's all done. Alright, so up next we have these little intake panels right here, the block offs. Let me get this opened up. As you can see, again, a little bit of 3D print lines right here, but this is just something that we're going to have to deal with moving forward with modeling, are the 3D print lines. Unless people spend a lot of money and get the 8K and all that stuff, we're just going to have to, and these are not bad, don't get me wrong, these are not bad 3D print lines. These are easy cleanup, and you'll see here in a couple weeks when I do a P3 kit that's been 3D printed, you'll see the difference between good and bad 3D print lines right here. But we have actually absolutely amazing detail on the inside of that. We do have some supports to cut off right here, so be very careful with that. But again, very nicely done on the detail on that. And like I said, with the 3D print lines, don't worry about those. Those with a quick, I'm just going to take it with the quick sander right here, very high grit sander, and I'm going to sand it off real quick. And now that part is going to be nice and silky smooth when you paint it. So you're not going to get the 3D print lines on that. So that's how easy it is to take care of those 3D print lines. So if that is something that's kind of weighing you off of buying a kit, don't let that be a factor. Alright, so up next we have another landing gear door, and not much detail to the outside of this, but again, we do have the 3D print lines. But like I said, don't worry about those. Just a quick sand, and especially how this is on a flat surface, is going to be really easy to take care of. And on the inside, again, alright, so we do have a lot of 3D print lines. We're going to have to be very careful when sanding around this, but shouldn't really be an issue. Just take your time on that. And it looks, in the camera and the lighting, it looks a lot worse than what it actually is. So I mean, I'm looking at it in person, and that will take me about 5-10 minutes to get all cleaned up. So don't worry about any of that. And we get 2 of these, by the way. Up next we have our nose landing gear doors, and yeah, we do have some more 3D print lines, and again, don't worry about those. Those are easy cleanup. Then on the opposite side, we have some very nice cabling detail on there and everything. So these 3D print lines are very, very shallow. So when you put a primer over it, it should all disappear on that. So don't worry about any of that. So again, but the doors are actually like very, very thin on how thin they are. And then we have the front landing gear door right here. Again, nice. All the shapes look correct. Then on the reverse side, we don't have any detail on that one. Alright, so moving on to our wheels, we have a plethora of wheels to go on. As you can see, nicely molded. We do have a little bit of a sidewall detail right there with Goodyear, and also some light tread detail on there. Might need to go in and scribe that a little bit deeper, but those do look pretty nice, and when you get them painted up, those are going to look really nice. And then looking at the wheel hubs right here, again, really nice detail included on those. You can see all the bolts and all that in there. So again, very nice detail, and it fits. We'll have to do some cleanup, but those should fit pretty well, unless they go in from the back side. I think they go in from the back side, possibly. Yeah, we'll have to see. When I actually start working on this kit, I'll do all the cleanup and get everything to fit, but right now we'll have to see. There is a little bit of a rim right on the edge of here, so that could be affecting the fit of this kit, or of the wheels. Alright, so up next we have our landing gear struts right here. One piece, so we don't have to worry about assembly. This does feel very, very strong on plastic, or on resin, so we shouldn't have to worry about anything. Right here we have a little bit of flexibility on this piece, but that's not really a real support piece to worry about. But again, some nice detail on there, a nice starting point to add in some cabling and detail on there if you really want to spruce this up. But again, very nicely done on the 3D printing aspect of this. Then we have the nose gear strut right here. Again, very nice detail. Adding in some cable detail, some lead wire afterwards will really spruce this up as well. So, alright, so up next we have the boarding ladder right here. Again, very nicely detailed, nice, super thin on the walls right there for the ladder. I'm being very careful while handling it. And then the door for the actual hatch, the body part for it, is also extremely thin too. So some very nice printing and design work on that piece as well. Up next we have all the sway braces for our rotary launchers right here. Nicely detailed. You're not going to be able to see much of these when they're in the bomb bay unless you leave the bomb bay completely empty. Alright, up next we have the bomb fences. Let's get these out because they look very detailed. Alright, so looking at these, very nicely done on the detail on that. They are drilled out, very small holes, but they are drilled out for that. So very nicely done on all of those, and we get 4 of them. Up next we have one side of our rotary launcher. Again, we have some nice area, and then you put in all the cabling and everything that goes in. That's going to look really, really nice when it's all done on that. So I might add one penetrator bomb and or the mop, one mop, and then leave the other one empty so you can see the detail that's in this. And we get 2 of these as well. Alright, so up next we have the center wall for our bomb bay right here. Again, nice detail on that, and all you need to do is add some lead wire and spruce that up, and that's going to look really good inside the bomb bay, which we'll be seeing here in just a minute. Then we have one of 2 rotary launchers right here. Not much to it, but we're going to be adding in the electronics boxes that go in here, and then all of your ordnance and the sway braces and all that go there as well to really liven that up. And then you can add some more cable work as well. Alright, so next up we have our bomb bay doors right here. Again, we have the 3D print lines, but just it's on a flat surface, so it's going to be really easy to take care of on that. And then on the reverse side, again, a lot of, we have our actuator arms right here, and then just sand all these 3D print lines down real quick, and it will come out real nice and smooth. You might have to sand it down, spray it with a test spray, and then see if there's any areas that you need to hit up again. But again, very, very nicely done. Alright, up next we just have one of the bulkheads for our bomb bay right here. Not much to it on either side, but you're going to be adding in that sidewall right there, and then the rotary launchers right there, and then the bomb bay and everything. So not much of this is going to be seen. Alright, so up next we have our landing gear wells for our main landing gear. Again, not much detail, but if you want to, it's a good starting out point, and I'm sure that finding good reference for what all is inside of all of this, pretty sure that's pretty difficult to find because B2 is pretty still well classified as well. So again, nice starting out point for that. You might take some artistic freedoms with getting that assembled, but here's how. Not sure on how this works. There we go. So that's the main landing gear well right there. Again, a good starting out point. I'm sure that finding reference pictures of the actual B2 and getting pictures of the landing gear wells and bomb bays, probably almost impossible to find, but this is a good starting point. Take some artistic freedom with adding in your cables and all the stuff to that. Alright, and finally our last part is the bomb bay, and this piece is a very large chunk of resin, right? So I'm holding it in my hand, and it is pretty big. It's the size of a Samsung right here. That's the Samsung Note. That's how big it is. So that's how that is looking from that side, and again, good starting point. adding in all the detail if you want to with that, but you're also going to have rotary launchers in here and ordnance. For me, I'm going to be adding the MOPs in here, the penetrating bombs that were used in Operation Midnight Hammer, and that's how that all looks. I'm not seeing, we have the 3D print lines, but that's something that you can't really deal with unless you have one of the super expensive 3D printers. So again, easy to deal with all the 3D print lines, and they are so fine they might not even show up after primer. So alright, so that is everything in the Titan Models 1/48 scale B-2 bomber, and I can say that the kit looks great. It's a good starting point for if you want to go super detailed. If you build it straight out of the box, it's still going to look amazing when it's all done. Just take your time, read the instructions, especially if you're like me and haven't worked with vacuform before. That's something I'm going to take very slow and make sure I get it right, because I want this one to look right, because it is the only game in town when it comes to this scale of a B2. And even I think maybe the old Testers B2 is the only one out, and I'm not sure if Model Collect ever came out with their B2. Actually, yes, they did. Model Collect did come out with their B2, and that one absolutely looked horrible. But other than that, that's all I really got to say about this kit. Again, I left the URL, the link to Titan Models down in the description. So if you want to go get this kit, you can go over to the link and get one of these models, and also check out everything else he has in his shop. But other than that, if you haven't yet, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment down below, and until next time, have a great day, stay frosty, and happy modeling.